If the Reds think that they're going to contend for the NL Central in 2026, they got to get that clutch bat in the lineup.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been hosting this podcast now for 7 seasons, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Reds, every single day. And on today's podcast, Mo Egger will be joining us today, and I am going to ask him later on if he would bet on Nick Krall. In just a few minutes, we're going to look at which players currently on the roster we have the most confidence in for 2026. But we will begin, though, with the desperate need that the Reds have this offseason. That's all in today's episode that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. And joining us is Mo Egger. Mo, I appreciate you joining me, man. What you got for me today?
What a guest booking coup by you to get me on your podcast.
I appreciate you so much for joining in. My typical co-host, he's gallivanting around Ireland, going to like the oldest pub in the world and things like that. So nice. I thought I'd bring you on to talk some Reds with me. Sure. I'm a bit jealous of him. Went to Ireland a little bit earlier on this year, but
nice.
I would go back in a heartbeat. Let's start with this, because it's clear through these playoffs, watching the teams that are advancing, it's about the clutch at bat. And even the teams that didn't quite make it to the World Series, we saw clutch at bats from guys on the Brewers all year. We saw clutch at bats from Cal Raleigh and from Julio Rodriguez on Seattle, and obviously Vladimir Guerrero and guys like that. Do the Reds currently have a guy who could develop into that clutch at bat, or is it more likely that they're going to go outside and get a guy via free agency or trade this offseason?
Well, I think they absolutely need somebody from outside, because look at all the holes they have to fill. They need more production from both corner outfield spots. They need better production from first base. They need more production from the DH spot. They need more production from second base. I think we're just going to shrug our shoulders and go, you know what? You're not going to get anything offensively from third base because Ke'Bryan Hayes is so good with his glove. You're not going to move him. So there are so many places where you need more offense from that it's hard for me to believe that the solutions to all of them lie internally. The solutions to some of them probably come from within and should, but I have a hard time believing that if the idea is to go from barely scraping by and needing game 162 to going into the postseason with rest and a division title under their belts, that they're going to be able to maintain the status quo and just hope that they get more production or better production from guys who were on the team last year and better production from certain positions filled by guys who were in the minor leagues this past season.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I was staggered a bit until Steve kind of righted me a bit. He told me, he's like, well, obviously Charlie's right whenever he writes this. But after the postseason interviews with Nick Krall and with Terry Francona and all those guys, Charlie had this takeaway where he's just like, much of the roster is going to return next year. Mm-hmm. And that staggered me initially. But even if they only add a few guys, which we all know who we're dealing with here, they're not going to go out and create a brand new team during the offseason. They might add a couple of guys in the complementary areas. This seems like we are going to get a lot of the same folks. So Noelvi Marte is going to be in right field. We're going to have, like you mentioned, Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base, Elliott short, Matt McClain at second, TJ Friedel in center field. So it does feel like if you're going to get that big bat, it's going to be through free agency or trade. Let's go here, because I have a hard time with this one. Kyle Schwarber is an obvious pick, but we know who we're dealing with in the Reds. I just don't see it happening. Like, is that fair? It's more evaluating the team that we have, but at the same time, like, we Reds fans should expect something like that, right?
Yeah, I talked about this last offseason in relation to Pete Alonso. And I say this from the perspective of...
He's available too.
Sure. I say this from the perspective of Reds fan, but also sports talk radio host. I hate the fact that it's not even a topic, right? Yeah. Now, one might say that's because of baseball's economics. Okay, but I think the larger issue is you just don't expect the Reds to dip their toes in those waters. And I hate that.
Right.
I hate that we are crossing names off before the offseason even gets here. That should not be what we're doing. We should demand, you know what, especially last year. Wait a minute. You can get Pete Alonso for a year to hit in this ballpark? Why aren't we talking about that? Like,
Yeah.
why,
He should hit 50 here.
right? Why is that not a thing? But unfortunately, it's not because of what we've come to expect. And so I think all of us would be surprised if Kyle Schwarber is the answer. I think all of us would be surprised if Pete Alonso is the answer. But if the conversation is ever going to change, the Reds are going to have to surprise us and make one of those guys, or a player of that profile, with that profile, make one of those guys a big offseason acquisition. Right? Does that make sense? Like, we're not going to start talking about the Reds being not even making big splash moves in free agency. We're not going to talk about the Reds addressing obvious needs with the most qualified guys until they actually do. Until they do, we're going to assume that they don't. And so, yeah, like they're probably not going to get Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso. So then the answer is, well, then what? Right? Then what? I don't believe that the Reds don't want home run hitters. Like that's a refrain that you've heard a lot. I don't think Nick Krall is sitting there with Brad Metter going, "I tell you what, we can have is a guy hitting 35 home runs over my dead body."
The Carr guy, he's pretty horrible, right?
Right, like, oh man, we don't want a guy who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Of course they do. The question is, how do they get one? And is there someone from within who you can rely on to give them that power boost? And if it's not Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber, who can you acquire from outside that's a little under the radar to give you that power boost? And ideally, can both things happen? Can Sal Stewart hit 30 home runs for you, and a guy who played for another team in 2025 also hit 30 home runs for you? My issue, though, isn't so much the lack of home runs. It's the lack of being able to score in ways that don't involve the homer. If this was a high on base percentage team, okay. If this was a team that just did what the team in 2023 did, which was constantly put pressure on the defense, steal bases, take the extra base, okay. They were still kind of a station-to-station team. They got at one point in August, it was the worst production from the two-hole of any team in the National League. I don't know if that's where they finished. Like it wasn't just the lack of home runs. Like if, the Brewers and Padres didn't hit a ton of home runs, but it felt like they found other ways to score. The Reds couldn't find other ways to score. And then so when you don't, you kind of come back to the lack of power.
That's the interesting thing that I saw on Baseball Savant, that the Reds attempted 200 less steals year over year. They had over 300 attempts in 2024 and just over 100 in 2025. And I know that part of that is that Elly was dealing with injury, but Ellie's not the only guy that can steal bases on this team. There's so many fast guys. I've heard, it looks like TJ Friedel's fast. Looks like Matt McClain's fast. It looks like that, Noelvi Marte can steal a base when he needs to. So it just kind of felt like you mentioned the station-to-station nature of the base running. If you're not going to get power, you've got to score runs in other ways, but they didn't seem to do that either. And so that's where I come up with that clutch at bat thing. Like, yes, we want the power, but who is going to be that reliable guy in the middle of the order? And it feels like it's got to be Mr. Outside Hire at this point.
Yeah, who's the guy you wanted to up at the plate? 2 outs, 8th inning, guy on base or down by a run. I don't have the answer to that.
Elly did that in LA in the wild card, and he struck out. And it was like, man, I kind of worried that was going to be the case whenever he stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, when he struck out, you shrugged your shoulders.
Yeah.
You shrugged your shoulders and you're like, you know what? That's the result I expected. They didn't win the series, but Cal Raleigh came to the plate in the 8th inning of Game 5 the other night, down by a run. And I'm like, all right, if you're a Seattle fan, this is all you could ask for, right? Yeah. This is the guy. And they didn't win the series, but this is the guy you wanted to play 8th inning, down a run, Game 5 at home. What else could you ask for? If he hits a home run, it's awesome. If he doesn't, all right, we at least had our best guy up, and him making an out is at least somewhat alarming.
Right.
Elly De La Cruz in that situation against the Dodgers, him making an out, him striking out in a big situation, not alarming, not surprising. So who's that guy in that situation that you go, this is the dude I want up? Like game's on the line, season is on the line. This is the guy that I want at the plate. I don't think the Reds have that guy. I think offensively they're so weird. And this isn't really, I think, where you wanted to go, but they're so weird because we're just going to nod along with having a third baseman that we all acknowledge is a below average offensive player, maybe the worst hitter in baseball. From a
Like if
position,
he's 20% below league average, we're like, oh man, that was a good year.
Okay, so you're constructing a team and a lineup every day around a guy that you're admitting at a position that is typically associated with power is an automatic out.
Mhm.
So you're start there. Like at third base, this guy's not going to hit. Well, then you're going to have to, I think, make up that production elsewhere. And the thing that I keep coming back to is how Christian Encarnacion Strand screwed him. Now that's
yes,
didn't intentionally have a bad year, but at the end of the 2023 season, I think we all thought that guy is going to man a corner infield position or be the regular DH, and you can count on him to hit 25 to 30 home runs. He didn't
most likely hit cleanup. Yeah.
Right. He didn't even get called up in September this year. So so now you're playing further from behind, right? Plus Elly De La Cruz by now was supposed to be a superstar. That progress has stalled. It may continue. I'll always bet on the talent. He's not yet 24. So, okay, I've got a guy in Elly De La Cruz who by now is supposed to be scratching superstardom, that upper crust of guy that he's just not yet been. I've got an offensive liability at third base. CES has left a void. We're having to teach Sal Stewart a position on the fly. Oh, and by the way, the guy who was earmarked to bat second last year, by the end of the season was batting where the pitcher used to hit. So like all of these things have snowballed and created a series of issues that, as nice as it was that they made the postseason, I'm not sure Nick Krall via one move is capable of fixing.
Mm. There's a couple of different things in there. And I want to start first with, all right, there are some guys that are coming back here, but they didn't necessarily have the best years that we thought they could. Do we have confidence in that changing? We'll discuss that next. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments because, quite frankly, I don't like spreadsheets, and Monarch makes it so that I don't need to use those. And who balances a checkbook anymore? I mean, Monarch puts all of this on one page with one login right there in front of you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com and the code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, because every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement this football season with Prize Picks, because it's good to be right. And look, I know in Ohio right now you can't actually use Prize Picks, but here's the hack that I use every time I go down to the game, whether it be a Reds game or a Bengals game. I go down to that place there in Covington that's a block on the bridge from the ballpark. You know the one that I'm talking about. And I set up my Prize Picks lineup because you can do it over in Kentucky. I usually take, more on Elly De La Cruz on the stolen bases. But, of course, it's football season, so let's talk football. Jamar Chase over on receiving yards. I mean, that kind of seems obvious at this point because Joe Flacco knows how to get him the ball. Plus, they've got other options as well, like some easy picks to help you build a lineup that's going to get you paid. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you don't miss anything that we've got coming for you. All the great Reds content all off season here on Locked On Reds. And that's everywhere you get your podcast because we're free and available everywhere. All right, so with this, it does feel like there's talent here, but we keep doing this thing where the production, not necessarily on the box score, represents things that we believe could happen in the future because there's other peripherals, right? Like the hard hit rates and the barrels and all this other stuff. And so for me, like, I feel like I can trust Tyler Stevenson coming into this year for a couple of different reasons. Like, I think he's aiming for a new contract. He still hasn't gotten one yet with the Reds. If that has to be somewhere else, dude's gonna want to like really show out this season. And there were some underlying numbers that said, okay, he was still hitting the ball pretty hard, and he was hitting the ball at a hard, at a consistently hard rate. So with that, he was getting a little bit unlucky, at least on the power side of things. That's kind of where we have to go, though, it feels like, with a lot of these guys, because as most people remember, they got to be that whole distinctive playoff team where they make it to the playoffs and they don't have all these things like guys who hit 25 home runs, guys who hit 280, guys who, did all these things. So when you're looking at the guys who are coming back next year, who do you have the most confidence in?
You sent me this question and I struggled with it. I want to say Noelvi Marte.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Noelvi Marte.
He provided the best moment of the year.
Without question. But is he going to come? Is he going to get to where he needs to be as a right fielder to make us feel good about his defense? And offensively, what is his ceiling? Like there was a stretch this year where I felt like he gave them easily the best at-bats on the team. And then there was a stretch where I felt like he totally disappeared. But look, man, this dude, I give that guy a lot of credit because he could not have been more in the organization's doghouse. And then toward the end of the season, he was indispensable. He's still really young. He's played in 190 big league games, so a little bit more than a full season. Like, can I see a comparable? He went from doghouse to indispensable. Can he take the next step? I don't know. I want to say yes. He's also playing out of position, man. So I'm going to say Sal Stewart because I think
I like that.
Even if the season isn't otherworldly, still feels like if he plays on 145 games, regardless of where that is, he's going to hit 25 to 30 bombs. His defense may be wretched. He may go through the long lulls that come with a guy playing in his first big league season. I think we are all cautious about putting all your eggs in the basket of a guy who's been in the big leagues for a month. Mm-hmm. But I think, like, I'd feel good if you said who's going to lead the team in home runs next year. I'd feel okay betting on Sal Stewart. Or who's the guy most likely to hit 30? I think I'd bet on Sal Stewart. I want that answer to be Elly. I'm so confused as to what Elly De La Cruz is going to be. Like, I don't know if he should be a shortstop, a center fielder. I don't know if we need to lower our expectations for what best case could be for Elly. Like, I don't know how much I should attribute the issue that he had last year to his groin. I don't know why, if he had a groin issue, he played every single day. Like, man, I'm confused. Sal Stewart, I feel like I had a decent idea of what it looks like if he earns a job on the big league roster next year, which I assume he will. I feel like I can easily kind of imagine what his numbers look like. There aren't that many guys I could say that about. Maybe Spencer Steer, but like, I feel like in whatever role Spencer is in, you're always going to feel like you could upgrade. I feel like Sal Stewart, is going to hit 25 to 30 home runs next season. He might not hit for a ton of, might not hit for a high average. Maybe he does, but if you're looking for home runs right now, as currently constructed, he strikes me as the guy most likely to provide them.
He's so fun too, like so easy to root for. His personality seems to come through in the way that he plays. And I'm not saying that he is, it kind of made me think a little bit of Joey Votto, like seeing the personality come through whenever he was playing. There's definitely no way that I'm putting that sort of like other, expectations on him. But I was just like, the way Joey played, the way that Sal played, it just kind of seemed like you saw their personality. And I like that when I see guys like that. But Elly's the same way. Like the personality comes through, but you're right. Like they asked Nick Krall if there's any thought of moving him off of shortstop. And the first thing he said was no. And the second thing he said was, we know we're going to play him less games next year, though. And so it was like, okay, so it sounds like you have confidence sort of in him playing shortstop, but not every day.
But then the question is,
also,
okay, but then the question is, I'm sorry, Jeff, to interrupt you on your podcast.
No.
Number one, why did he play every day this past season?
Right.
Are they afraid to tell him no? Is Terry Francona afraid to tell Elly De La Cruz, dude, at least you're going to have to DH occasionally? Like that, you can't do the, hey, he has not been as good as we need because he's hurt. Okay, well, put him on the bench occasionally. Well, he can't. Okay, well, then he's not going to be as good as you need. Well, he's hurt. Okay, well, then put him on the bench occasionally. Well, we can't. Okay, well, then he's not. I mean, like, all summer long, there was this, like, a hamster wheel of, holy hell, if he's hurt, if he's physically compromised, don't play him every single day. So I'm curious as to why they did. And I that doesn't make any. So after the fact, well, we know we're not going to play him every single day. Well, did it ever occur to you in August when he was really struggling that maybe he could benefit from a day off occasionally? So there's that. Number two, how is he going to get better as a shortstop?
Yeah.
Like what
2 years in a row leading the league in errors. That's what everybody's worried about.
So
like,
I have shifted because my take has always been your best athlete should play the most important position on the field, which I believe is shortstop. But as the summer went on, and every time a ball was hit in his direction, I held my breath every single time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this isn't really working. So I guess what I want to know is, number one, is it unanimous in that front office and among the baseball people that he should play shortstop? It can't be, right?
Yeah.
Jeff, if we go to the ballpark, if we go to a game in spring training and we walk up to 100 people and say, where should Elly De La Cruz play? We're not going to get 100 people to say shortstop. We're not going to get 100 people to say center field, or 10 people, whatever it is. So how
we
unanimous?
Get 60 people. Yeah.
Right. How unanimous is that? Number two, with Edwin Arroyo in the system, at what point would you have to say to Elly, we're moving you because the errors aren't going away? Is that next offseason? Is it in the middle of the season this year? Also, is there harm in putting him in center field in Goodyear just to see what it looks like? Just to see if he's comfortable? Just to see if he likes it?
Right.
Like,
and I think that there's a strategy to what the Reds do with their pitching staff. We've seen this a lot here recently where we've been begging for more ground balls. The Reds have not given up, or the Reds have honestly skewed the opposite direction and giving up more fly balls, because there's this feeling in Major League Baseball that if you give up 1,000 fly balls, 900 of them will be outs. So if that is the case, I think that moving Elly to center field makes a lot of sense. I want to discuss more on that next, and I also want to ask a question about Nick Krall in just a moment. There's still time to get in on this great introductory offer over on FanDuel. I know that we're in the middle of football season and all that stuff, but of course the World Series is starting on Friday night, and we've got the odds for the series winner. The Dodgers are favored, -220, no surprise there. You've got the odds on the Blue Jays winning at +184. It's interesting because it kind of feels like I've been picking against the Dodgers all postseason, and I'm just not going to do it. Like, kind of feel like -220 is hard to put any kind of money on, but I think I'm picking the Dodgers to win this World Series. And if you've got a choice, you can go make yours over on FanDuel. New users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's a crazy good offer. Go download that FanDuel app today. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. Or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonmlb and get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonmlb. And don't forget to use our code lockedonmlb so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're everywhere that you get your podcast, and free and always available there too. All right, so finishing up the thought there, because I kind of cut us off in there in between, but Elly De La Cruz to the outfield makes sense to me from that angle as well, of the whole pitching thing, because I was talking with our Guardians guys, I was talking with our Rays guys, and that's something that their organizations are doing, and the Reds want to be more like those teams, so that's probably where they get this pitching notion that, okay, fly balls, even at Great American Ballpark, are okay. So then does the most important position become center field rather than shortstop?
Maybe. It may. I guess, number one, how much longer does this go before somebody says he can't play shortstop anymore?
Right.
When they decide we're moving him, when does that occur? Is it going to be a Noelvi Marte situation where it's in the middle of the season and you go, all right, Elly, you've never played the outfield. Here's your outfield glove. Go out there and play in games that count. Like,
I think we know the answer to that, unfortunately.
Right. So I hope Elly becomes the sort of shortstop that everybody thinks he can be. I'm skeptical. I watched him play he played in every game this year.
Right.
I watched a full season of him just not be reliable. He could at times make the unbelievable play. He could at times make the routine play look like it's impossible. So, I'm not totally opposed to him coming back and playing shortstop. But don't you have to have a strategy in case this continues to not work?
Right.
And what is that strategy?
I feel like everybody's favorite comparison in this manner is Fernando Tatis. Fernando Tatis played shortstop for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And then he moved to the outfield. Like, he started moving to the outfield in that third season a little bit. There was like 24 games where he played in the outfield in 2021. And then after that, he never played shortstop again. And so I kind of feel like that is something that they end up doing with Elly, if that is indeed the case. But it also sort of feels like they're just going to continue to run him out there, expecting him to one day just stop all of the inconsistency and be that guy. Like, it was easy for us to make the Barry Larkin argument last year. Sure. You can't do that now. He's that's not the argument now.
No. And, if we're sitting here next October putting a bow on the season and Elly De La Cruz is among league leaders in errors at shortstop, then what? And right. I hope we're not. Like, I hope to God we're not. But even prior to 2024, you had many who believed he was better suited to play elsewhere. Mm-hmm. There have been 2 seasons of evidence to suggest that those folks are at least not wrong. How many more seasons do we do this? Again, especially when you have Edwin Arroyo. Like, right. I don't know. And then the next year, okay, why did he play every game this season when he was compromised? Like, I keep coming back to that. And so are they afraid to tell him no? Are they afraid to tell him, Elly, you're not playing today because you need a day off? Elly, you're going to move positions. No, I'm not. Okay. Like,
right.
Are they afraid? I don't know the answer. But in 2 instances here, I seen them, one, not do what they should do, which is give him a breather occasionally. And 2, what appears to be exercise a complete inflexibility when it comes to moving positions. Is that because Elly just doesn't want to? Like, are they afraid to tell him? No. Are they afraid with master communicator Terry Francona? Like, I put it on him, man. Like, Terry Francona, Cooperstown-bound Terry Francona, who's managed a lot of big egos. Was he really afraid to sit Elly down and go, "You're not playing tomorrow," to give your groin a rest? Really?
So that leads me into another question, and that leads me into Nick Krall, because I wonder a little bit. And there's some of this that's connecting some dots. So I'm not saying that I've heard anything to this effect, but it just sort of starts to seem this way. It feels as though the way that the roster has been operated has not changed year over year from David Bell to Terry Francona. Is that a directive that Nick Krall is in charge of that? And that when Nick Krall is managing the guys on the roster currently here, as opposed to even just adding guys here, do we trust that moving forward? Because it does feel like there are some cases where you're just like, man, is Terry Francona really doing this? And sometimes I allow myself to think, well, what if he isn't? Then Nick Krall's that guy.
Yeah, I just, again, I'm making it about this one thing.
Right.
It was comical all year long to hear them rationalize Elly's struggles with, well, he's not 100%. Okay. Then don't play him every single day. And whether it's Tito, whether it's Nick, whether it's the entire baseball operations, nobody raised their hand and said, "Hey guys, this guy's really struggling at the plate. He's not hitting for any power. He's unreliable in the field. He's also not 100%. Crazy thought here. Maybe give him a day off."
Just one. We weren't asking for a week. We weren't asking for an IL stint. We're just like, hey, give him one day.
So I think I've talked to a ton of people who are a lot closer to it to me that'll say, like, Tito did a great job this year. And I think his, tunnel vision focus on just the next game paid off this year for this team. I believe those things.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, with the guy that most believe is their most important player, how did you allow him to fail this year while publicly acknowledging he's not 100% and not have any other solution besides run him out there? It didn't make any sense. And by the way, you could put some of that on Elly. Skip, look, I'm a little tight. I want to be there for the team, but I'm not doing us any favors if I'm out there and not hitting, not contributing. So law of diminished returns. Let's give me a breather here. Like, how did that happen? And so then you add to it not switching positions, which may prove to be the right thing. I'll certainly allow for that. But it just, you wonder, like with Elly in particular, every other player, if they're dealing with soreness, tightness, something that doesn't require an injured list stay, but something that might be impacting their ability to play at their best, they get days off, right? They manage their playing time. Maybe they do put them on the injured list, so we're not playing shorthanded. With Elly, it was just like, nope, never getting a day off. And it feels like with the shortstop situation, it's, nope, going to play at shortstop no matter what. What they're doing with him, to me, may have a terrific payoff down the road, but it feels weird.
It felt instrumental for this season, for sure. I mean, the whole month of July and then the whole month of August, you put those 2 months together, he had one home run. And leading into that point, he had mashed home runs to the point that we were thinking he could hit 30 on the year. And then it just all stopped. It all hit a crazy wall. And so for me, like, it raises questions about, because I think that Nick Krall has done a fine job in most cases. It's just there's questions about, can they get over the hump? Can they be legitimate contenders and not constantly be, boy, the Reds might sneak on in. Eventually, you've got to move from the sneak on in to the guys that are being chased, and I just don't know that they have that ability this year.
Sneak on in cost them a chance to beat the Dodgers, because sneak on in meant game 162 mattered, which meant you had to use Nick Lodolo, which meant you couldn't use him in game 2. Sneak on in had a ripple effect. Nobody wanted to admit that amid the euphoria of making the postseason. But look, the Dodgers have been otherworldly here, at least in the National League playoffs, so they probably lose the series anyway. But I watched game 162, and Brady Singer, Tito managed the game with urgency. He did the right thing. I got to win today's game. I can't rely on the Miami Marlins. But Brady Singer doesn't pitch very deep into the game, and now Tito's got to use that bullet in a game that matters instead of being able to, first of all, win the division comfortably and get a bye, or at least go into that last couple of games using it to set up what you're going to do in the postseason. So, yeah, man, like if ever there was an advertisement for not sneaking in, it's that, because you want to be able to set your rotation. You want to be able to, if there are guys who are not 100%, give them a few days off so they're at their best going into the postseason. Yeah, man, like they went in with 83 wins. If the idea for any team every year is, well, we could just get to 83, 84 wins, that will fail more than it succeeds. And yes. I think Nick Krall deserves a measure of credit from, man, he took this thing from where it was. Really, I've said all along, the rebuild really started after the 2020 season.
Yes.
When they didn't make that team any better and let Raisel Iglesias walk and Archie Bradley and didn't make the team any better. At that point, you knew the direction they were going in, and you knew it was going to bottom out, and it did in 2022 with the 100 losses. From then to now, the concrete evidence of the plan working was they made the postseason, and they did because of things that Nick Krall is responsible for. But I think the leap from where they have been 2 of the last 3 years in that 82, 83 win range to where we want them to be, where we are talking about them as legit title contenders.
Yes.
I think that is a massive leap, and not just in 1 year, because remember, the idea is for sustained success. And I think the idea is, while you have Elly De La Cruz for the rest of the decade, to continue to get to the postseason every single year, but do so in a way that when the playoffs start, you're like, you know what? The Reds can get to the World Series and win it. I think to go from where they are to that, I think that leap is bigger than the one they've made from where they were when they lost 100 games to what they were this year.
Mo, I appreciate your time, man. I know I've taken a little bit more of it than I usually.
All good. It's fun.
Talking some Reds baseball here in October and, off-season stuff. We'll definitely have you back on during the off-season, hopefully, to celebrate some sort of move that makes sense. We know these Reds love to do certain
Or if they trade Hunter Green, I can come on and yell and scream about it for 90 minutes.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of different scenarios that if the Reds do a thing, I think we will begin the show by going, yeah. Anyway, make sure you keep subscribe. That way you don't miss any of that's coming for you this offseason right here on Locked On Reds. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Trip over the last word. That's always good.